Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Really do appreciate your time. Tonight, we're talking about the Nancy Guthrie case and still not found. However, there is things that are rolling out today, such as Savannah has done a new interview. Very heartbreaking. But what we're really digging into tonight is what happened before Nancy went missing and the light behind the alleged perpetrator. We're going to talk about that, digging deep. Get ready on the other side of this.
I've walked through storms in scars and grace, smile through pain with a painted face.
Sing it with me.
They call me too loud, too much, too strong, but honey, that's the reason I belong. Every scar's a scripture, every tear's a hymn. I found my worth where the light grew dim. They tried to break me, but here's a twist. I turned my pain into a clenched fist. I'm an unbreakable woman, born of fire and pearl. I shine like grace in a reckless world. You can test my faith, you can shake my plan, but I'll rise again. Just watch me stand.
What you did, girl? You okay? Thank you so much.
I've been whispered about and written off, judged by the gloss, not the cause. But God don't build weak hearts from gold. He made me fierce and he made me bold. I bend, I pray, I roar, I rise with mascara, tears and battle cries. Don't need your crown, I forge my own. From ashes, honey, I build my throne. I'm an unbreakable soul, dressed in truth and pearls. The fire don't scare me, it lights my world. You can doubt my voice, but you'll hear my name. I'm holy and hood, and I'm done with shame. For everyone called too much, too loud, too real. You're not to anything. You're exactly what power looks like. I'm an unbreakable soul, through the fight and flame. My scars are stories, my strength, my faith. Faith in my heart, fire in my curls, forever divine. Clutch them pearls.
Let's go.
Clutch, better tighten the pearls. Drop the cold facts, got the truth for the world. No smoke, no fluff, just the real that we trust. Hold on to your seat, cause I'm coming in clutch. Coming in clutch. Coming in clutch, better tighten the pearls. Dropping cold facts, got the truth for the world. No smoke, no fluff, just the real that we trust. Hold on to your seat, cause I'm coming in clutch. Coming in clutch.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Thank you all so much for joining me. Really do appreciate your time. You could have chosen to be anywhere on YouTube. You have a lot of options, anywhere on the internet, anywhere in thy world. And you chose to be right here. I know your time is very valuable, and I do appreciate you spending some time with me. Today is March 25th, 2026. It is currently 8:05 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. Bonjour. Can you guys believe it's almost April? That's crazy to me. It's almost Easter. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Good to see everyone in chat. Tonight we're talking about the Nancy Guthrie case. Have been on it since nearly day one. And interesting, very interesting things that has came out in the last couple days. I am still just absolutely gobsmacked about how everything, in my opinion at least, and with what the neighbors are saying, are lining up on January 11th and January 31st, which was the evening Nancy Guthrie was doing dinner and then went home and all that stuff. A lot to talk about tonight. So we got a lot to go over. So, guys, before we get started, if you don't mind, you know what I'm going to ask. If you would please hit that thumbs up button, would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And if you would consider sharing the live out, would mean so, so much. Also, if you don't use it, you lose it, so to say. And they give three hype, three hypes a week, each person. It's absolutely free. If you would consider hyping this video after your live, I see you guys have been doing that. I am so thankful to each of you guys for doing that. Truly does help, especially they've recently changed this algorithm on YouTube, and it really means a lot right now. So thank you all so much for joining me. Let me say hello, bonjour to a few of you guys in chat. Trish, good to see you. Miss Susan, Peggy, Shari, Ginger, Miss Eureka, about time, but this is my busy season testing meeting for middle school. Fun times, Miss Eureka, right? Robin, Mimi, good to see you. Susan, Yvette, hello. Robin, Ginger, Carol, Peggy, Luck O, Deb, good to see you, darling. Tina, hello. It's the craziest case. It really is. I usually have a big opinion on a case. You guys know, like I usually have a direction I'm laser focused in by now, particularly. With this one, this and probably, I mean, I do obviously have opinions on this case, but this case and Jean Benet Ramsey case have been really hard cases for me. And for those of you who know, I have a little connection to the Jean Benet Ramsey. If you followed me a long time, you probably already know that. But I still have an opinion on Jean Benet, and I still have an opinion on this case as well. But I'm not, it's so weird because there's so many, I call this like an octopus case. There's so many tentacles out there that it could be just anything. And a lot of things don't make sense. But some things that make absolute sense, in my opinion. And one is that this was absolutely targeted. They were absolutely planning this, but it's the who and the why. You know what I mean? Good to see you, Miss Tina. There's my dear Jen, and thank you, Miss Jen. Really, really do appreciate your support. You doing okay? You okay? Haven't seen you in a couple days. Hope you're okay. Hit that like button so you appreciate it. Thank you so much for Justin's hard work. Thank you so much, Miss Jen. Love you, baby. Appreciate you. Hopefully you and yours are well. Reptile, good to see you, my friend. Robin, you missed your song. You can go back and play it. You can go back and play it. Hey, Brian, good to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well. Rhonda, Miss Susan, Trish, right, Justin? It's crazy that it's almost April. I know, it's crazy. Peggy, good to see you, friend. Where am I? Let's see here. Carol, hello, darling. Miss Leslie, always keeping it real. Mike, bonjour. And who else do we got? Gina, good to see you, darling. Good to see everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Hello, though. Good to see you, Cassie. Off the charts. Yeah, yeah. Um, okay. So Savannah Guthrie did an interview with where she works, the Today Show, NBC. And I don't know if it's going to be like a longer interview or not, but it's just a few minutes long. We'll watch some of that. It's the first time she's spoken out in a while now. Um, she's trying to get her, they're trying to get their life back together. But how can you get your life back together when one day you're called and your mother was literally ripped out of her house in the wee hours of the morning by who? You know? Like, it's crazy. Mint says, agree, targeted, and feel the same. It can fit different motives, yet that can be. So maybe more sure if they would release some more later. Yes, I agree. I agree. And that's the question I've been asking for the last several days, Mint. If they truly, because the FBI is on this, and of course, Sheriff Doofy, which there's a lot going on with that as well. We'll get to. If they truly don't know who this mother chicken is, right? Why are they not giving out some more information? Why are they not giving out more information on this guy? Give us a little more. Give us a little more video. Someone's got to know him. I think most people agree that this guy's local. And most people agree that there's more than one person involved. However, we don't 100% know that. It could be just one. It could be two. It could be three. My theory, as of now, is that there's at least two, maybe three. And I still wonder, again, not saying anybody is involved by any stretch of the imagination, because don't know, and I'm not ever blaming anybody, but I still wonder about the three, what I call the three. Why the FBI was at the dailies, why they were at Carlos, and why they were at Tomaso's. And that's the only thing in the last nearly 2 months that we've really seen that they were kind of focusing on. Could mean nothing. But it also could it mean that there is some sort of link? Do they know each other? Do they have no idea who they are, each other is? Don't know. Don't know. Hey, Cinderella, good to see you. The interview, Cinderella. Sorry, I apologize. We have a Cinderella and we have a Cinderella. The interview will be shown in full on Thursday and Friday. Awesome. Okay, so let's get to that first. Poor Savannah. God, I mean, it's the last 2 months is probably, um, yeah, it was Charlene. Yeah, I was talking about that last night, and we're going to get to that door, these doors, because there's something up. There's something up with this as well. It was a sliding patio door. Yeah, we're going to get to a lot of this. Guys, thank you guys for coming in, and make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you're just rolling in here. Appreciate you. Poor Savannah. And I love Hoda. Hoda's a great person. People's been even criticizing Hoda, by the way. I'm like, how the hell does anyone criticize Hoda? She's like the sweetest person, like in real life and on the screen. People's like, does she want to take her job? I'm like, no, she's being a friend, uh, helping, feel like she was filling in for. Goodness gracious. Can't even do something nice for people anymore. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Um, here we go, y'all. Yeah, Hoda's a good person.
Opening up in her first interview nearly 8 weeks since her mother Nancy.
You can see the pain in there. My God, you can just see the absolute pain on her.
Nearly 8 weeks since her mother Nancy's shocking
Sad.
abduction.
Someone needs to do the right thing. We are in agony.
Yeah.
We are in agony. It is unbearable. And to think of what she went through.
That's really hard to see. That's really hard to see. And obviously, Savannah knows Hoda here, and she's really comfortable with her. And it's kind of like two girlfriends talking. So you can tell she's way more vulnerable here. And that has to be, like she said, agony. Just trying to go through your day, back to your life, when thinking about what your poor mother went through.
I wake up every night, in the middle of the night, every night. And in the darkness, I imagine her terror. And it is unthinkable, but those thoughts demand to be thought.
Yeah.
And I will not hide my face.
Yeah, that's, my chat is frozen. YouTube, don't start this, or StreamYard. I don't know what's going on. Let me pull it up so I can't see the chat right now. It's being a donkey. So I can see what's saying, because it'll probably all come in at once. One second here. Give me a second, guys, so I can pull this. Okay. Last thing I see is Lolo here. Okay. Here we go. Hoda was crying with Savannah, so moving. Yeah.
That she needs to come home now.
This just a portion of Savannah's heart-wrenching conversation with her former Today Show co-anchor, Hoda Kotb.
There is a desperation and also a steeliness about Savannah. I mean, she's hoping that somebody, whoever this person is, will see something and say something.
You know, there's a saying, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And that's true, but you're only as happy as the ones you love the most as well. You know what I mean? And when someone else that you deeply love or care about suffers, you suffer, right? And just words really fail me. Thinking about someone coming in your house at any age is terrifying. That's truly, think about it. That's truly what horror movies are made of, right? Someone coming in the house and trying to unalive you. Now imagine being 84, technically the end of your life. And this happening. For what?
Hoda says Savannah told her she believes God is holding her hand, and that even through this nightmare, she's determined not to let anyone steal her joy.
I was sort of marveling that she was able to sit there with an outfit on, have a conversation, and also have just direct thoughts about what she sees going forward.
And Tom Hoda says in the interview, Savannah also addresses the latest in the investigation. A reminder that if you know anything, you can contact the FBI tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Tom?
And please call that tip line if you have.
And they're essentially begging, absolutely begging. And they believe that someone knows something, and someone has to know. Someone has to know something. Okay. I think there is maybe another clip here that we might have. Let me see here. Give me a second. There might be another clip of that before we move on here. Also, tonight we're going to be speaking about those empty houses. We didn't get to it last night. But I have the map of every empty house in that area. Pima County was just bypassed. That speaks volumes. What do you mean, Cindy? What do you mean by that, babe? I pray she comes home. This is torture. Yeah, and I mean, they obviously, Savannah and them obviously know that it would truly be a miracle if she came home. Like she came home alive. I think we can all pretty much agree on that, and it seems like that she kind of realizes that now as well, right? So yeah, let me 1 second. Okay, I'm pulling this up. Okay, here we go. We're going to go to Ashley Banfield, who's really been on this case as well since day one. And, she got a lot of criticism for some of her sources in the beginning. But listen, I mean, I still wonder. I got to be honest with you. I still wonder. Again, I feel horrible for the family. Absolutely. Savannah and Cameron and Annie and all of them. But Savannah is a very intelligent individual. And like the FBI hasn't cleared anybody that we're aware of, right? Haven't cleared anybody that we're aware of. Now, the Sheriff Doofy, he says something different. In my opinion, it felt kind of like pressure. I don't know. Could be wrong. We'll see. Going to Ashley Banfield in this about the blood. The blood. Very important. Very important. Now, a week or so ago, we had talked about there was allegedly blood on the other side of the door. And now Ashley, she's got a source that is saying there's blood in the house. And clearly, if we go back to the very first, it wasn't really even a press conference. It was the sheriff outside talking to reporters when Nancy first went missing, before it really even hit big news. And Sheriff Nanos said that there was a lot of concern that something wasn't right within the house. But he also said she could have walked off. Obviously, we need, the question is how much blood was inside, right? Something clearly went wrong inside that house. If there's blood, there is violence of some sort. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, I cannot see Nancy being too aggressive back with, some, she it's basically, she's 84 years old. And it's like, a sheep to a wolf. You've got a younger, stronger man. And then you've got 84-year-old Nancy. Did she put up a fight? How did the blood get where it is? How much blood is it?
Woman, maybe she wandered. An elderly woman didn't show up for her church event, and her family has called us. When the more skilled investigators arrived, they saw evidence that indicated they needed to call in a more skilled and experienced team like the homicide investigators, right?
Mhm.
They saw, according to my source, the back door was wide open. My first source had told me that the back door was wide open. My second source told me back door is wide open. My episode yesterday, if you haven't seen it, told you which door we think it may have been based on many data points that I have sort of amassed, and that she regularly left her back doors, plural, unlocked. There's a back door that goes into like a storage unit or storage part or a shed part of the house.
Now, I want to make something clear about this. A lot of people did not lock their doors in this neighborhood. And regardless of whether she locked every door, bolted them up, or left them wide open, you still don't have a right to go through someone's door, right? My mom is much younger and healthy, and I honestly think she would have had a heart. I think it would be yes for anybody, right? Hey, Kels. Just in my opinion, Miss Nancy didn't leave the house alive. I agree. I hope I'm wrong.
That could be part of the garage.
Watch
But
this.
it doesn't look like it's part of the house proper. And then there is a back door that is right smack dab kind of in the middle of the house that goes into the back.
So from what I understand, there's a door here, and then there's a door pretty much like right here. It's almost straight aligned, right?
Patio, and it is visible from the front door.
Where
If
the
you
patio.
come in the front door,
Got it.
you can kind of see that back door out to the back patio is
Right. So this door right here, like you open the door, you can see through the house and see the door back here where the patio is. You get what I'm saying? Like the doors align pretty much. They're just on opposite sides of the house. You get what I mean?
front door. You can kind of see that back door out to the back patio is right there, and if it's open, you can see it. And we were told there was blood in the house, but I could never find out where. Where did those investigators see it so that they knew there was something so dire that they had to bring in homicide investigators? And now I know. Now I know where the blood is inside the house.
Listen to this.
And it is a fascinating piece of data because it is right in the front entrance of the home. Front entrance, front hallway, whatever you want to call that front entrance. We don't have a perfect photograph of the.
Now, again, these are sources that are saying this, right? But this has been something that we have heard. I've talked about it even a week or two before this, that there was allegedly blood on the other side of this door. And I was just talking about, well, how much? What does that mean? All of that. In my opinion, it's going to tell us quite a bit of where the violence took place. If there's more blood on the inside of the door, then, or she was being contained, if you will, while they were taking her out, it tells you that they were coming out of the front door. tells you they were coming out of the front door. Now, I think, just my opinion, there was more blood on the inside of this door. Why do I say that? Because as you come on the other side of the door, which was what we're looking right now, there's obviously blood. But as you come forward outside of the porch and you come out forward to where the sidewalk is, there is less blood. Right? So, in my opinion, it would make the most sense that whether Nancy was walking or she was being carried or contained, there's more blood in the inside on the other side of that door, and the door was opened and she was either still bleeding or the containment, whatever that is, whether she had her in a sheet, a blanket, whatever, came out as they were leaving the door there on the porch, and as they walked out on the sidewalk, they either fixed the containment or it had leaked all it was going to leak. You get what I'm saying? I gotta pull up my chat. That's so driving me nuts. I can't see half. Okay. I keep my doors and windows locked. Yes. So utterly disturbing. Yes. Okay. Here we go.
Entrance, front hallway, whatever you want to call that front entrance. We don't have a perfect photograph of the inside of Nancy Guthrie's front entrance. We have a good photograph of what's off to the left, and it is a living room. As you look off to the left, there's a nice living room and a window behind you there, and a fireplace and another window and a sliding glass door at the end. But if you're standing at the front entrance, you're looking to the left down the living room, and you're looking pretty much straight ahead to the sort of family room area with a fireplace and a nice big long window out the back of the home. And then off to the left of that, a door that is more than likely the door that the investigators saw open, because that's what you would see. Could you also see the sliders open way down the left in the living room? If those doors were left open, my source said back doors were routinely left open, not.
So this is the thing. If this door, if the doors were routinely left open, that means this this perpetrator or perpetrators probably knew that, because they apparently knew what cameras were working, what cameras weren't working, or if they were recording or not, rather, and if they were there Saturday evening while Nancy was at her daughter's house. What were they doing Saturday evening while Nancy was at her daughter's house, while the neighbor saw this vehicle that was parked on the side, and the other neighbor sees a man? This is another neighbor sees another man, or a man, on the 11th, but on the 31st, this is when the neighbor whose cameras weren't working saw this vehicle that they had never seen right down below Nancy's home. Did this person go in prior to, Nancy coming home? Or were they preparing something else? It's really, really quick and creepy. Very, very creepy. Guys, I'm going to come out and come back in. My chat is just, it's given me trouble. I apologize. I'm trying to fix it. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, hopefully that will fix it. Let's hope. Okay, let's go back to Ashley here.
Side sliders. There are two sliders that exist on the side of the house, right? You walk in the front door, look all the way down to the left. There's a sliding glass door out to a little patio.
can.
And then there's another sliding glass door that goes into another room, presumably the master bedroom, maybe Nancy Guthrie's bedroom. And if you're confused at all between the difference between open and unlocked, let me explain. The investigators saw a door, a back door,
Mary.
wide open. That's the reporting I got. Not just unlocked, wide open.
Right. Right. And this is the thing. Why leave the door wide open? Why leave the door wide open? Because this person, these people clearly were not in a hurry. It didn't seem like it, at least, right? They were there 40 some minutes. They didn't seem like they were in that much of a hurry. So why leave this door wide open? Was their hands full? Were they clearly wanted it open? They clearly didn't try to clean up the blood inside and outside of the home. They took her from her bed. The clothes that say would be irrelevant. Her clothes that say would be irrelevant. What do you mean?
Open. And the Guthrie kids told the police that Mrs. Guthrie routinely left her back doors unlocked. So those are the difference between unlocked and wide open. As far as sliding glass doors go, they are towards the side of the house. And I was told back door wide open, and back doors, plural, routinely left unlocked. I don't know about the sliding glass doors on the side of the house, way off to the left as you walk in the front door. I'm not sure if those were unlocked as well. Did this perpetrator get in through those? Maybe, possibly. I don't know. But the blood now in the front entrance of the home is a significant detail about this crime.
Very much.
Just in the front entrance, not in the bedroom, not in the kitchen, not in the living room, not in that family room.
Okay. So okay, let's think about this, because this is very interesting. If there is no blood in the bedroom, no blood anywhere else, why is there just blood at the doorway? Inside the doorway and right outside the doorway. Why is that? Again, I would be shocked. I know a lot of people think, did she come to the door and answer the door? But again, I cannot see an 84-year-old woman who is most probably in bed, sound asleep, without her hearing aids, and all that, coming and answering a door with a masked man. I don't see that. So what else could it be? I don't understand why they didn't describe what outfit Nancy wore to her daughters. To me, because this was never, it is a missing persons case, but it's, I don't think this was, they, in my opinion, expected her alive. Missing, like she could be out there alive. I think that they knew something was really bad from the jump, right? I think he came in from the back, and they were going to take her. They hid her in the hallway on the way out, as she did not want to leave. Perhaps, but again, this took 40 some minutes. 40 some minutes. I wonder, like, was there a conversation here that happened? You do this or else. And like, I can understand, like you just said, like, she didn't want to leave her house or whatever, and they might have hit her or something. But as soon as you walk out that door, you can scream. You can scream if you are independently walking. You are, were there, you can scream as well. Because if I didn't want to leave my house, right, and they were like trying to force me or whatever, if I'm outside and they're trying to take me to the car, that's the only chance I got, and I'm going to fucking wail loudly. And if I didn't want to go and they knew I didn't want to go, but they, like hit me, so they, would try to get me to go, you would think, well, shit, she might do something when we get her outside. I don't know. Yeah, never try to let them take you. I think they zip tied her arms or restrained her. Maybe that's where the blood came from, in my opinion. Possible.
The front entrance has a pattern of blood that is the same as it is outside, and it goes over the threshold out the door. So imagine, if you will, standing in the front entrance of someone's home and there's blood dripping, and you're walking out the door, and that blood dripping continues in the same pattern out to now the front entrance outside the home, and the pathway that goes down the front walk towards the driveway. First, though, quick note for myself.
Okay, now remember, like I said, to me, there would be most probably more blood on the inside than there would be outside, because it seems to dry up, if you will, on the sidewalk. There becomes less and less blood. You get what I mean? There becomes less and less blood. So to me, something happened at that doorway, whatever that is.
Now is crossing over the threshold of that front door, folks, on the internet, because he's got other theories about that. And he's so much better at this than me and a whole bunch of folks on the internet, because he's got other theories about that expiration-like stain. Don't get too caught up on it being an expiring kind of stain. He's an associate professor. He's got a long title, so I have to read it. Sorry. Dr. Peter Valentin is an associate professor and a department chair of the forensic science at University of New Haven. He's testified in 7 states. He's also testified in federal court as a blood stain, blood spatter expert. He's also a forensics expert, so not just blood pattern, but he's very, very good with the blood patterns. And so I asked him a lot about what this new information tells us, and also to give
very interesting,
expertise on the blood pictures that we've seen outside. He's got a lot to say. Don't go anywhere. You have to hear this, because it's not what I thought. A lot of it is not what I thought. Like, I've had to rejig my thinking about what might have happened to Mrs. Guthrie based on what Dr. Valentin has said. Also, just a few things in the news today regarding who, Sheriff Nanos. He's
Sheriff
a pattern
Doopy
that we've all seen outside Nancy's front door continues over the threshold and inside her front entrance. But that's it. That's it for blood spatter, for blood droplets, for blood evidence in this crime scene.
So what's interesting about those blood droplets is that they're what we refer to in blood stain pattern analysis as drip stains.
Since says the amount of blood decreasing the further you get from the house could indicate movement. I definitely agree with that. I do think that indicates movement for sure. But it starts somewhere, and from where we understand is it starts right there inside the doorway. And that means either something had to occur at that doorway or there had to be containment loss and then movement, right?
And drip stains are probably the most common stains that we see, and they are what they sound like. They are blood dropping from an object. And
I think I don't know what this guy is going to say, but I think that this probably comes. I don't think it comes from her mouth. It possibly could come from her nose, but I think this most probably comes from either arms or head, hands, something like that.
Landing on a surface, and they have no energy associated with them. It's simply gravity pulling blood down and blood falling onto a surface. And notice I didn't say it means that somebody's bleeding, although very often that is what's happening. What could be happening here is that, and we're all assuming that is Nancy Guthrie's blood.
No, we know that.
We know that's Nancy's. Yeah, we know that's Nancy's blood. We do know that. Now, again, a lot of people think because there's blood like dripping like that she was alive. And you're right, dead people don't bleed. But there is a thing called a wound, and there's a thing called gravity. And that happens as well. For instance, if you were unalived with bludgeoned, for instance, if you were bludgeoned and there was a wound, and obviously it's going to bleed while your heart is pumping, but then after your heart stops pumping, and for instance you are carried somewhere, that blood, it's like like the water always finds the path of least resistance, right? So wherever the blood would be, it's going to fall, it's going to drip because of gravity.
Yeah.
We do know that the sheriff confirmed it's hers.
Okay, right, because otherwise we'd be doing forensic genetic genealogy on that unknown blood. But what it means is that an object, most likely Nancy Guthrie, is the source of blood outside the threshold, right? So outside the door. But where it stops can mean one of two or even more things. One is that she is put into a vehicle. It is she or somebody sees that she's bleeding and then stops it, right? Puts a towel, puts a hand, does something to stop the bleeding.
Yep.
The other thing it can be is that she is repositioned.
Yes.
And the repositioning changes the blood flow.
Well, that would be really critical if we...
Now, I just wanted to say, and this is true crime, and this is not glamorous. I just want you guys to know, so if you're squeamish to this stuff, it's probably not, it might not be your live stream. But he's absolutely right. It is very hard to carry a body. If it's 150 pounds and 5 foot, whatever, 5'3" or 5'4", It's very hard for one person to carry someone, very difficult for two people. And think about this. What do you do when you and your someone that is helping you carry something heavy for kind of a far distance? You put it down and you say, hold on, give me a minute. Or I need to get it I need to hold this at a different angle. Right? And so when he says repositioned, that's what I think of. Okay, may have carried her this far, repositioned, something leaked. But the problem with that is, again, how is there not blood anywhere else? How is there not blood in her bedroom? You get what I mean? Like, if they did something to her in her bedroom, there should be blood there. Right?
Had a continuation.
The only places that at least we know for now, allegedly, that there's blood. Well, we know that it's on the outside, of course. We've seen it with our own eyes. And I've heard reports, Ashley is also talking about this now, that there is blood on the inside of that doorway. So if that's the case, it's a bit confusing, because it kind of just makes me think something happened there, but I don't know. It's very, very confusing.
My sources tell me that what you see is what you get, except for the stuff inside that I broke, in this podcast. And that is that the blood droplets go down the outside entrance of Nancy's home and down the path and stop. No gap and then restart. So it just seems logical that that's where a car could easily park.
Bingo.
And that's where she could have been taken away.
I agree.
Yes. And so now I was a detective with the Connecticut State Police in addition to being a forensic scientist. So here's where I get to combine those two skill sets. And so imagine what I just told you, that, we have the repositioning of the source of the blood, right? So we'll assume for a moment it's Nancy's, maybe it's her chin, maybe it's her arm, wherever it happens to be. And then, along with that, you have a waiting vehicle, right? So the blood stops,
that's what I'm
because
saying
there's
too.
a repositioning. And then why doesn't the pattern continue? Because she's put into a vehicle, which is certainly what makes sense given the location. Now, investigatively, what do I want to do with that information? Of course, there's been a tremendous amount of investigative effort put into finding the vehicles that were in the location that night. And of course, as it should be. Now, what do I care about as a forensic, scientist, a bloodstain pattern expert, and really as a forensic scientist trying to find traces of blood? There's blood in that vehicle. Even when you know that you're trying to clean an area to remove blood, it is exceedingly difficult, because most people, when they clean a place where they think blood is, they only clean until the color red is gone. But the chemical components of blood stay there. And we have a whole, cache of reagents that are called latent development reagents. And what they're specifically meant to do is help us find blood that we otherwise can't see. So in the event that a vehicle is recovered that is believed to be the vehicle that transported Nancy from that house, the first thing that we'd be doing, or should be doing, is looking for that latent blood, because I'd highly doubt that it would be visible at this point in time, because it's the critical piece of information that puts that vehicle.
And Nancy's, if she was alive, like, if you are ever, heaven forbid, kidnapped or anything like that, it's always try to leave obviously you can't help but generally leave your DNA, but try to leave it every fucking where you can. If they start taking you to another place, always try not to go. Get to the floor as low as you can. Fight them like hell. Don't let them take you to that second location. But an instance that they do, right, and you're, for instance, bleeding or anything, and they put you in a car, touch every motherfucking thing you can, and you're bleeding, I'd be rubbing it, right? Just rubbing everything, touching everything. That's what I would be doing. Oh yeah. Bite, scratch, kick. Come up.
At the house at the time that she's bleeding, because blood doesn't stay liquid for very long.
And we so hope that we'll get there. But I mean, we're starting to feel as though we may not. We may not get to a vehicle. Let me just go back to the source of the
Absolutely. Jerry, spit everywhere if you can. I'd look like the Exorcist.
bleeding, because this is what's new to this. This is new to me, and I believe it's new to everybody. I haven't seen anybody else report it, and my source gave me this information, that the bleeding begins inside the house, not outside the house. This is not something that happened at the door. The bleeding didn't begin at the back, at the front door outside. It began inside. And I had imagined that anyway, because a source.
See, yep, see? What'd I tell you? What'd I tell you? That blood started inside. You can tell if that blood was inside, you can tell how it gets less and less. And that's very important. That's very important. Guys, if you're just joining us, please hit that thumbs up button. Grateful you all being here. Consider sharing the live out, all that good stuff. I survived this. It happened to me with the grace of God. Wow. Peace of Jesus. God bless you. Sassy has amazing news. Let's hear it, Sassy. Did you see the big bandage on Nancy's arm the night she was with her daughter's house? The blood could be from that. We don't have pictures from the night she was at the house that I'm aware of. Yep. You rock. You're a legend. Once that image is in the civilian's court, share local police the exact resolutions angle and revisit rate of our. Hey, baby kisses. There's everyone. I didn't see the full chat. My chat is freezing today, so I'm looking at my phone, but it looks like it's moving now more, thank God. It was difficult in the beginning of this
blood
live.
found inside. We just couldn't tell where.
Mm-hmm.
We know she was in her bed because Savannah has said she was taken from her bed in the dark of night. Those are her words. Taken from her bed in the dark of night. So you would assume then perhaps there'd be some kind of a struggle in the bedroom where she would see for the first time this intruder. But my source says that is not where blood is found.
Sassy.
Blood is only found inside the home, at the front door, inside that front hallway. It's where the dripping begins, and it continues over that threshold.
In that front hallway. Magdalena, my goodness, thank you so much. Girlfriend, you are a rock star. Thank you so very much for gifting pearl necklaces. If you received one of those, give our girl a major thank you.
Hope people are paying attention to this.
Welcome to Clutch Them Pearls, yeah, you're in the clue. Shine bright like the stars this world never knew. We're dancing, laughing all around this world. Hold tight, shine bright, you're part of our world.
Magdalena. I don't know why I sing it like that. I just had to sing it like that. Thank you, Magdalena. I appreciate you. You're very kind. That's, by the way, one of my favorite names in the world. I'm not just saying that, it really is. I promise you. Thank you so much, my dear. If I had a daughter, I was going to name her Magdalena. I want to name her Magdalena. But I have boys. I have all boys. God gave me boys. Thank you so much, Magdalena. Appreciate you for gifting 5 memberships. Daff, don't do that. You don't have to do that. Thank you so much, my dear. I appreciate you. Very kind of you, my love. Much love to you. Appreciate you very, very, very much. And 7 months. LOL, Justin. Thank you so much, darling. Appreciate you. What are you laughing at? My singing? My rock star singing? It is weird. I know I am. I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm weird. I appreciate you. Thank you, Magdalene. Appreciate you. Miss Lori. Thank you, darling. Appreciate you. Thank you, darling. Very kind. Joseph comes in sometimes. Joseph comes in sometimes. Appreciate you, Miss Lori. Much love to you, my darlings. Good to see you, and really, really do appreciate you. Daphne's favorite phrase. It's weird. LOL. Thank you, baby. Appreciate you. Okay. Let's see
So,
here.
if you're that Connecticut state cop again, what are you imagining happened inside that house?
I want to hear this.
Okay, so this is great information, and finding blood on the inside of the threshold doesn't mean she wasn't first attacked in the bedroom. I think everybody can remember a time that they were injured when it took some period of time for blood to accumulate.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I'm not going to agree with him on this. He's right. Yes, technically. But we're talking 84-year-old woman on blood thinner with very thin. Your skin is thin at 84. She's on blood thinner. I don't know. I don't think it's going to take that long to get. I mean, if she's moving very quickly. What do you guys think? I want to hear it in chat. Yeah, for a little scratch, but this type, it is her thing is a little low. I don't know why it's a little low today. It's usually not low, and the volume's up as high as it'll go. But I don't know. I mean, if there's this, I'm 54 and my skin is thin on blood thinner. I mean, we all know someone that's been on blood thinner, right? Containment was in bedroom, in my opinion. But if there was containment, if the initial whatever happened, the initial violence, let's say, or scratch that made her bleed happened in the bedroom, how long is it going to take for an 84-year-old with thin skin on blood thinner for it to start dripping? Yes. Blood not dropping fast till she's moving. Okay, if could be true, if she's moving, she's moving, for let's say, for instance, from the bedroom outside. First of all, she can't walk quickly, right? I've said this. You can't hurry up an 84-year-old immobile woman. They might be able to walk a little faster in a thing like this, but you can't force them to walk really any faster than they're able to walk, because if you do, they're going to fall. And if they fall, God forbid, break a hip or whatever, then you're even in more of a mess right there. So let's think about this. Let's say they made her walk out. Something happened in the bedroom, and as this guy says, it takes time for this blood, as she's walking out. Like, and it starts, we'll say, in the inside of the doorway. And as she's coming across the doorway, outside of the doorway, there's blood, but then there's a little bit of blood on the sidewalk. That means it either had to stop bleeding really quickly, she's on blood thinner, or they had to, again, contain the blood of some sort. Band-Aid, covering it up, something.
For it to begin dripping. And a common mistake a lot of investigators make is they hyper focus on the place where they first see the blood, and they think this is where the attack occurred. And that is almost, I wouldn't say almost always incorrect, because in shooting scenes, you can have the immediate production of blood where it does fall, or you get spatter stains where it memorializes where the shooting occurred. But not even in shooting scenes all the time. You can have somebody wearing a winter coat or a shirt, and if that bullet enters and exits that person, what's first going to happen? The blood is going to soak into the clothing before it then begins to drip or then otherwise present itself outside of that. So
that is true, but again, she's on blood thinner, and her blood has to be thin because of her heart condition. I don't know. It just makes things even more confusing in this case. Well, if that's true about the sheriff allowing her to clean up, my goodness. Well, I mean, this is the thing. When a crime scene happens, you can hire the police. Never clean up the blood ever. You either, the family does it, or you hire someone to do it. That's
in the blood
standard.
In one room doesn't mean that that's the room where the attack occurred or the incident occurred. You have to go back and you need to look for other potential items or artifacts to give you indication.
Okay. Mish says, I'm on blood thinners, and when I'm cut, it bleeds tons. I always look so much worse. Okay. Anybody else other than Mish in chat here on blood thinners, let me know, in your opinion, whenever you get cut, how long does it take generally for the blood to fall? Does it take a minute? In your opinion? Does it take a minute for the blood to fall, or is it pretty quick in your opinion? Seconds. Immediately. No quick, yeah. Because it's the platelets, yeah.
Of what might have happened. Now, what you can do is you can look at the type of blood stains potentially, and then look for
it's very
other
fast.
sources
I know
of
it
evidence
is.
and put those two together to say,
So I showed you guys a photo the other day of I see you, my mod, her husband's on blood thinners, and she was actually, she just hit his arm, They were moving something the other day or something, and he immediately started bleeding, and it looked very similar to Nancy's, but it fell immediately. The blood fell immediately right on the porch. Right on the porch. Happened, started dropping. My mom is for her heart. She bleeds bad, but I don't know how long it takes to fall. Depends on where it is at the body. It does. It does.
Do the blood stains and the, you know, the artifacts within the space
Let me
help
find
me
it.
understand what happened, and therefore are the blood stains suggestive of the event happening in this space? I know I'm being a little cagey about
No,
what we have
no,
here.
but I'm fascinated with, well, everything that you're saying. The droplets are vertical
Mhm.
and they're undisturbed. And my source tells me that inside, as you go in through the front door and you now are standing in the front entrance of the home and the blood is there, they are identical. They are droplets that are undisturbed. There's no sign of struggle in them. There's no footprints in them. They are just quite literally a trail of blood droplets that goes from the front hall
Trail.
over the threshold of the front door, down that front walk, and disappear. But I get very confused about how that could have happened if she were walking, say at gunpoint, because theoretically the gun would have to be behind her to be moving her
Thank
along,
you,
not
Ashley.
dragging her along, from behind, right? Or carried. But I mean, take your investigative lens and tell me what you think about an undisturbed trail of vertical blood.
All right, I'm going to show blood here. So trigger warning. Right there. That was the other day when just instant. Barely did it. Barely got his arm. Boom, boom. Right. And now Nancy's blood that's out there, it had been there a while. Right. So it had time to coagulate and it had time to dry as well.
Droplets like that. And then we'll get to that one spot that doesn't look like a trail of vertical. It looks like an expiration zone. So start inside and then tell me what are the options here for an investigator to imagine
Yeah,
how she was taken out of that home.
Okay, so there's a few things there. We might need to slow this down because I actually do see some disturbance in the blood droplets outside the house.
Okay.
And what I see are called skeletonized droplets. And so if you look at some of the droplets on the outside of the house, they look partially dried. So what you'll see it's essentially a perimeter stain. So you'll see the exterior of the circle, and then you'll see an absence of blood in the middle of the circle. And what that means is that blood droplet was
It's like a
down
donut.
on the surface long enough.
For those of you that's think of a donut. Think of a donut. It's round, right? But in the middle part of that circle, there is either no blood or usually less blood, and there's more on the outside of that circle.
For the drying process to begin, and then something disturbed the droplet as it was drying.
Okay,
Now-
I can explain that. And here's the reason. I wish these were forensic pictures we're looking at. They're journalists' pictures. And I don't know if the investigators got good forensic pictures. I assume they did because they knew they were there. But these are journalists who, after the scene was released 30 hours or so later, and they may have gotten to it 48 hours and walked up and seen it and started rolling video. So you can imagine those blood droplets have now been there for at least 48 hours, and the journalists are walking.
So I'm going to make an assumption about what the temperature was at the time that those blood droplets were deposited. Mid 70s, maybe 80 degrees.
Well, February
No.
1st,
No.
1:47 to 2:28 a.m. I'm going to assume closer to 2:28 a.m. because that's when her pacemaker separates from the Apple device. So 2:28 a.m. in Tucson, Arizona, February 1st.
Let's say even 60 degrees I'm in Connecticut, so I'm jealous of the temperature no matter what it is in
Mm-hmm.
Tucson. That blood was not liquid more than 15 to 20 minutes. So it wouldn't have mattered when the journalist came to the now released scene. Those blood droplets had already dried. They couldn't have changed the appearance of those droplets unless they rehydrated them.
Yeah,
And that would have been an obvious
I
alteration.
agree with
So
that.
a skeleton.
Highly unlikely. By the way, rehydrating them, highly unlikely because they were covered over. That's a covered entrance.
Exactly. So, I have to make that, because I've testified, I have to
Sure.
make that, acknowledgement that I recognize that there is a way to do what I'm talking about, but it's so unlikely that it's not an explanation for what it is that we're seeing. But what we do tend to see in scenes is that recently deposited blood can begin to dry, and then the movements of our source of blood, our bleeding victim and or our perpetrator, can disturb those stains and memorialize the activity. Now, these drip stains, the ones that we're talking about, they don't tell us what happened, meaning like what's the injury,
Mhm.
what's the what happened during the attack, what is the
Mhm.
attack, what's the injury of our victim. What they do for us investigatively is they tell us what's the movement post event, post injury. So in one sense, they're not very helpful in kind of helping us understand the incident itself. But where they do come in handy, if you will, is that they tell us who's going where, right? Who is the DNA profile and where are the stains located? So having Ms. Guthrie's DNA on the inside of the threshold and on the outside of the threshold tells us something that seems fairly obvious, is that she's at the threshold of the house. But what's interesting is that if she's at the inside of the threshold long enough for the blood droplets to accumulate there, and she's also at the outside of the threshold long enough for all those blood droplets to accumulate there, there's an inference that we can draw. And there's a phrase that I use when I write reports and I testify I say it's a not insignificant amount of time. And it's a period of time that's not momentary, but I don't know how long it is. But I know it's not insignificant.
I'm listening to every word this guy
Right? She's
says.
there long enough for
Well,
that blood to accumulate.
I'm glad you said that, because when I have an untrained eye and I saw it and I thought, these are very vertical. They're not moving quickly and coming in on an angle. And there are enough of them that this is a slow moving event. And
Mhm.
I have been told by my source that the blood inside is exactly the same pattern as the blood outside. So the slow moving event started, at least where the blood is concerned, in that hallway.
And again, to me, that creates even more confusion. Yeah, I would think it would be a slow moving event, but either way you look at it, think about this. If Nancy's walking, that's a slow moving event. If she's being carried, that's a slow moving event, right? Damn it! To me, it just makes it even more confusing. It's an answer, but it's still a non-answer at the same time. You know what I mean? 84-year-olds don't walk quick, especially ones on canes, and you don't carry an 84, 150-pound, you know, dead weight, so to speak, quickly either.
And so, as the investigator, is this somebody who's struggling to carry her, or she's struggling to walk and is walking slowly?
Thank
Like, you
you.
tell me.
Yes, Ashley.
So what I can say about the stains on the outside, and it would be hard for me to offer a well-formed opinion because I would love to see the inside stains too.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, are they a continuation? Or are they two separate patterns?
Exactly.
But what I can say about the outside stains is that there's one photograph, there's probably more than one, but there's one that I paid a lot of attention to that essentially shows droplets falling in the same place. And you're getting this like secondary spatter. And you see a lot of smaller droplets in the same area. And so we tend to see those when you have the source of blood in the same location
For a
for,
longer time.
again, a not insignificant period of time.
Yeah.
So if the blood,
So, meaning that, obviously, if you're standing in the same spot, right, and something liquid is dropping, it's going to stay in that same area longer. But if you're moving and there's liquid going, it's going to create more of a longer trail, which means wherever, like, where those spots are, there was slower movement or no movement at all at that time.
is in the same place where it's essentially dripping into itself, you get these tiny droplets that come from the now accumulating
pull it up.
pool of blood on that surface. So you get these tiny droplets, appearing around the edge of this now expanding pool. And I say pool because that's what we call it, a pool pattern, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's large. But if you go back to that photograph, you'll see that around some of those drip stains, there's a slightly larger stain that has tiny droplets around it.
I'm going to show
spatter
you.
Stains. And what that is,
I think she's showing it right here.
Again, preliminary opinion by looking at these photographs quickly, is that that's blood falling into an accumulation
Right
of
there.
blood that's already on the surface.
So she's standing there for a period of time.
I would say, I can't say she's standing, but I can say this.
Right. You see the patch right there, the bigger patch right there, or right there. I don't know which way. You'll see it. There is no movement right there, or at least a period of time. Right? It's dropping onto that same spot, falling into itself. Right there. So, was she standing right there for a second? Or did they pause a second while they were carrying her?
Source of blood, which I think we'll say, based on the volume, is not an object with her blood on it, but it's her, is stationary. Is she
There's the
standing?
word
I can't
stationary.
tell you because I don't know where the injury is.
I'm glad
But-
you, by the way, let me just stop you there because I'm glad you just mentioned that. It's not an object with Nancy's blood on it. I hadn't contemplated that. To contemplate that, if someone uses a weapon and is carrying the weapon out of the house, this is absolutely, in your opinion, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, this is absolutely not the pattern of an object with Nancy's blood on it.
I would say, given the volume that we're seeing here, and given, again, I haven't seen the photographs of the pattern inside.
That's a good point.
Given
Very
that
good
there's
point.
two patterns, one outside, one inside, it's highly unlikely that it's from an object, because the pattern that comes from an object with somebody's blood decreases over time. Right? There's a limit to how much blood you can have on an object. And so as a function of time, the distance between droplets increases because there just simply isn't enough blood, or there isn't more blood to continue dropping. So if
I agree with that. I do agree with that. However, it does decrease over time when we get close to the sidewalk and stuff. But I still don't think it was from an
if a
object.
person is walking with an object that has blood on it, the distance between those droplets as the person continues to walk increases.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But so again, you're having to look at the journalist's pictures, not the CSI photographs that you'd prefer. But you're seeing that Nancy was in a position for quite some time. This wasn't a slow moving event out that front door.
I would say she was stopped at that threshold for, again, a not insignificant amount of time. Is that 30 seconds? Is that 2 minutes? I can't say, but something's going on at that threshold long enough for that source of blood to create that pattern that I just described, where you had those satellite spatter stains. And now the question is, well, what's the activity? In particular, when you think that she's being restrained in some way, whether or not she's standing and somebody's restraining her, or whether she's being carried, or whatever the thought is, what's happening in that moment while she's being restrained and those blood droplets are landing on that surface. Now, what you also can say is that there has to be a clear path from the source of the blood to the surface. So if, by way of example, if we believe that the blood is coming from her nose and her mouth, well, then there must be a clear path from her face to the ground, right? So it can't be then dripping onto her clothing. It can't be hitting her pants.
Or
So
her legs as she may be
exactly
is walking. It does. And by the way, to me, it looks as though this is a clear vertical path without a lot of dynamic movement.
Yes. So the fact that the stains are circular tells you that the source is directly overhead, because as the source changes its orientation and it no longer is directly overhead, the shape of the droplets change. So we generally don't need to do this.
So, like, if an arm was swinging, like there's a lot of movement with your arms. Think about this. Let's say your arm was bleeding, right? And you're walking slow, but your arms move while you're bleeding. It's going to change patterns and directional as you're bleeding. And this doesn't really show that. It shows that wherever the blood is coming from, there is not really movement. So, in my opinion, it can only be two things, right? That, let's say, for instance, she was restrained and zip tied, right? Zip ties would, and if you restrained her hard, it's going to cut her skin, right? And as she was moving slowly or taking a break or whatever, it's going to drop down in the same spot. There is no different directional in that. Or, again, they were carrying her out.
Drip stains, but in other situations, you can actually estimate where the blood's coming from based on the shape of the stains. And in this situation, because we recognize them as drip stains and an overall drip pattern, we wouldn't need to do that. But in other situations, the angle of the droplets is critical for us.
And these don't look,
events.
Yeah, these don't look like they have angle.
No, they don't. They're generally circular.
Which means it's a slow moving event, because you can't continue the movement without some kind of an angle.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely the spacing of the droplets is generally what tells me something about, I'll say the speed of the event or the speed of the movement. It's two things, right? Because there's also a rate of blood flow, right? How much is the person bleeding? That can also contribute to the spacing of the droplets. So you can see this quickly becomes a pretty complex, situation as you're trying to process all of these, not only the appearance of the blood stains.
Very interesting.
What do the characteristics of those blood stains mean in terms of investigative possibilities in terms of, potential for injuries and where blood might be found later.
Hey, another quick note from my sponsor. Do you think all those natural products
That's very, very interesting. This is very interesting. Guy is a wealth of knowledge.
them have been bought out by mega corporations? And
1 second here.
that's what it looks like. It looks like a cough. What do you see when you see that particular spot that isn't a nice
I don't think
clear
it's a cough.
drop?
I've never thought it came from the mouth.
So the satellite droplets that I mentioned as being potentially the blood falling into liquid blood could be confused for an expiration or an expirated pattern. Now, the way to distinguish between these is that expirated blood tends to mix with saliva and mucus.
Told ya.
Right? Because it's coming from either our nose or...
Told you. We've all had a cut in our mouth or your gum bleed or your tooth being pulled. And when you spit, right, there is saliva mixed with it. And that is, it's diluted.
Mouth. And had somebody been at the scene that either was a bloodstain pattern analyst or knew enough about BPA to have somebody consult and look at these stains, that blood could have been tested for the presence of amylase, which is the enzyme that is in our saliva that helps us digest starch. And that would allow us to distinguish blood coming from this area from other blood sources on our body. And that helps us understand something about the dynamics if we recognize where the blood is coming from.
I can understand that, but I also just sort of see amidst all these direct vertical drops, there's this what looks like a spray. How else could you get a misting of blood but for expiring?
Well, I don't see enough detail in that photograph that I could necessarily infer that it's a spray.
I don't think that's a spray.
There is a pattern that we call a projection.
I think, in my opinion, because she was on blood thinner, obviously there's the platelets change, right? It loosens it all up. I think her blood, in my opinion, was more like water, right? And it drips thinner. And those blood drops drop more like water. And then it's more of those small drops are, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more like a secondary drop, those little drops. Big drops, and then it's the spray, if you will, is from it dropping and then dropping again around it. I don't think it's a spray from the mouth, in my opinion.
Right, where you have blood accumulating generally in your mouth, and you can project it, or, and this is not what I see here at all, you have a breach of a major vessel and you project a large volume of blood, and that's not what we have here at all. So the idea that blood is being
like blood splashing,
sprayed onto the surface is really inconsistent with everything else that we see.
Really?
That I'm seeing from the photograph.
And not coughed?
It's not coughed.
It could be. Again, I don't see enough in that photograph to say that looks like a cough, but if it looked like it when I was actually looking at a better quality photograph, the easy way, first off, the other thing that you could do just from the photograph is there's a dilution of the blood.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, it's mixing with saliva.
I agree with this guy.
Other thing that you tend
billion
to see
%
is that because there's a
like a
tackiness to saliva and mucus, when blood is mixed with
let me okay, so let me give you an example when I say like a drop and then it comes off here. All right. Have you ever, like when you're outside of the summertime and you've got shorts on, but you're spraying your sidewalk or whatever, right? And it hits the cement, but the drops come back and hit your leg and makes your leg or your foot wet, but your stream is over there, but there's these micro sprays coming off of that and spraying back on you. That is what I think this is right here. Yes, it's blood. Yes, there are big drops there, but these little drops are creating these micro drops. And if she wasn't on blood thinner, I think it would be different. But she is on blood thinner, and her blood is extraordinarily thin. What about a sneeze if they hit her in the nose? I think it could be, but I don't think it is, in my opinion, because like this gentleman said, blood, like so think about it, like blood, liquid falls the path of least resistance, right? And blood that's like on your nose, it's usually going to fall down, hitting you. If you've ever had a nosebleed or anything, you generally are sticking your head over, right, the sink or whatever, because you don't want it to hit you. Now, if there is, again, your arms are tied to the back, you can't move, and it is hanging over you, and that would fall straight down. You're still going to get some blood probably on your back and all of that. In my opinion, there must be a way more when they use. Oh yeah. Blood thinners it really makes your blood thin. Even if you take an aspirin, ibuprofen even thins your blood as well.
Mucus, little droplets tend to stick together and cluster together, so the way that the blood behaves changes in a way that you can recognize in the resultant droplets.
Yeah.
And I didn't really see that in the photographs that we had. I just saw satellite spatter.
Yep.
But again, if what we needed to do was really interpret, hey, is there a difference between these two patterns, and does it have value for us to interpret them? You would take a photograph and really zoom in and see, are there differences between
satellite,
these two?
sorry to interrupt, but for the satellite spatter, don't you need a source that is your direct source that sprays out to the satellite spatter? Because it
The clotting
doesn't look like
factor,
it
yeah.
in that one misty blood pattern.
So your source of blood
Here.
actually is the blood that was already on the ground. So
Hold on.
if you drop 3 or 4 droplets,
Let's hold on.
Little droplets tend to stick together and cluster together, so the way that the blood behaves changes in a way that you can recognize in the resultant droplets. And I didn't really see that in the photographs that we had. I just saw satellite spatter. But again,
Hold on. What?
Photographs that we had, I just saw satellite spatter.
Yep. And that's what I was talking to you about, the the drops, like if you're spraying a water hose and you're spraying it over there, but it hits your leg, that's the satellite splatter that's going to hit you.
But again, you know, if what we needed to do was really interpret, hey, is there a difference between these two patterns, and does it have value for us to interpret them? You know, you would take a photograph and really zoom in and see, are there differences
for
between
satellite,
these two?
sorry to interrupt, but for the satellite spatter, don't you need a source that is your direct source that sprays out to the satellite spatter? Because it doesn't look like it in that one misty blood pattern.
So your source of blood actually is the blood that was already on the ground.
Exactly.
So if you drop 3 or 4 droplets of blood on the ground, and then you have a 5th droplet
Yes.
hit those 4 droplets that are already there, it creates its own spatter.
Yes.
Okay.
And if
you see that is a possibility in that particular spot. Because to
Yes.
me, I would have thought you'd need a concentration in the middle to even have the satellite spatter from another blood drop.
Yes, and you don't need a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think if anybody in your audience has
Especially
ever
if
had
you're
a
on
leaky
blood
faucet,
thinner.
and if you have 1 or 2 droplets of water land in your faucet, and that 3rd droplet hits, you see
I don't see another comment
water
either.
droplets
Donna.
from the water that's already accumulated in
Sure.
the sink, and it's the same concept. And
Is that what you see there? Like, you don't see it as a cough or an expiration. You see it as blood droplets that hit other blood droplets and
I
cause
agree
that
with him
spray?
1,000,000%.
between the two options, the one that seems more plausible to me is the satellite spatter. But I'm an evidence-based analyst, and so if I look at that and the stains look diluted and there's artifacts to suggest that you have blood mixed with saliva or mucus, then I'm thinking it's an expiration pattern.
Can I ask you, because my theory, and it's based on, you know, just my work as a journalist, and certainly not having any, I haven't seen any evidence that CSI investigators have collected. Let's put it that way. Is that she was carried out, and that he had her over his shoulder, and that she may have been bleeding behind him and leaving that pattern behind him that he's not stepping in, and nor is she. But that when he struggles to get through that big heavy door, and maybe there's some time that it takes
That's very possible too. Very, very possible. That's a very good thought,
him
Ashley.
to get those doors open and those doors closed, and he's turning around with her. Is it possible he may have moved and shifted so that her diaphragm, which might have been over his shoulder, would have gone, huh, and that might have been that source
No.
of that blood?
It's possible,
think
but
it's
I
as
don't think so.
plausible as anything else I've heard up to this point. The one part of it that I think is valuable is that it gives us a reason to think that Ms. Guthrie's blood would be on the clothing of the perpetrator, right? And most importantly, on their back.
Yep.
And in a lot of cases, when people don't think to look at their back as a potential source of blood stains, they always worry about what's on the front of them. You know, they look at the front of their pants, the front of their shoes, the front of their shirt, and they don't ever think about the back, especially in situations where they're using objects. And
Well, let's hope. I mean, again, this is down the road. If we catch the guy and we can go through his closet and we can find something
But-
on the back of a jacket that
To me, it's not. I agree with Ashley. Like, he could have been carrying her, right? But if he was carrying her and her arms would still be over, right? She could have had defensive wounds on her hand or whatever, and where he was like turning around or whatever with that doorway, having trouble with that doorway, she could have been bleeding from her hand, and that's where he kind of pauses right there. I don't think it's a cough at all. Never have thought it was a cough. Again, just my opinion, but here's some types of blood drops, right? Clot, swipe, mist, drip, arterial spurt, pool, wipe, void. And let me show you this. This is very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Looks like he was wearing, or did he change clothes that were in the backpack? We don't know. But can I ask you also just.
He had a kit. Whatever he had a kit. He had a kit.
The height of the blood droplets. I mean, it would seem to me that if you're dropping blood droplets from somebody who's over your shoulder, that's, a solid 4 feet that feels like it wouldn't drop in a nice, beautiful, round spot. It would spray completely out. What?
But he's holding it, but there is no movement there at the time, right? If he's having trouble, or he takes a break, or he's turning around and he's repositioning and stops for a amount of time, I don't think it's going to be
about the
movement
height of where those droplets came from.
So there's a relationship between how far blood falls and the size of the stains. So if we were to drop blood from, a few inches off the ground, it makes a very nice, neat, smaller droplet. And the higher we go, the bigger the droplet gets. But there is a limit to how big that droplet gets, because there's also a limit to how big a droplet can be in terms of volume.
How much blood it is.
Droplet can only be so big because surface tension holds it together.
There's only a certain amount of
limit to
blood.
that surface tension. But blood can only go as fast as its terminal velocity. Much like a skydiver can only go so fast towards the earth. So once we get to blood's terminal velocity, which is about 3 feet off the ground, it doesn't matter how much higher they were above that. There's no difference in how those blood stains look. But Ashley, what's just as important in assessing how blood looks when it's hitting something is, what are the characteristics of the surface? Is it smooth? Is it textured? Is it porous?
Yes. And also, like, if it's porous, or it's or if it's like a fabric or whatever, it will absorb the whatever the texture that it falls on. It can absorb, and that'll create a different pattern as well.
And so, these are ceramic tiles, and
they don't
might
absorb.
look smooth to us when we're looking at them on a photograph, but there's probably a texture to them there. If we were to touch them, that actually disturbs the blood as it's trying to make a neat circle. And so you'll actually get some satellite droplets potentially from that. But what you'll also get is you'll get like an irregular border. So it won't actually look like a neat circle. It'll look like how kids draw the sun, with the little beams coming off the edge. So you get what we call like scalloped edges. So you'll see a bit of that.
So interesting.
But, you don't want to mistake that for anything other than what it is, but it's just it's
A
in
surface
reference
pattern.
to the surface. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I hadn't thought of that, but it makes perfect sense. I also wanted to ask you how much you know about the difference between somebody who's my age, and I'm 58, the way I bleed and the way my skin, how tough it is to get me to bleed compared to someone who's 84 on blood thinners. Do you look at your science differently based on the person who's bleeding, or is blood no matter what?
So, the idea that somebody might be on a blood thinner doesn't mean that the viscosity of somebody's blood changes. It's more in reference to, how their blood behaves, I'll say chemically, for lack of a better way of describing it. So it doesn't manifest any differently in the way that it appears at a scene. So I don't really need to consider it. Now, there are some disease processes that will have a marked appearance or a marked difference in how blood appears at the scene. This is not one of them. So if she was on blood thinners, or if there were, or if somebody has high cholesterol, there is no appreciable difference in how the blood stains appear. And I don't need to take that into consideration when interpreting them. And the normal variation
Because of the
the
surface tension?
viscosity of human blood is something that always sort of factors into the variance. Like, I don't calculate angles to 3 significant figures. There's always a very sort of wide range that I'm working with. So even if we calculate angles when we're looking at angles of impact, the only way that I'll describe them is, was the person standing? Were they at some, lower height that was not standing, or were they, near the ground? We won't say, oh, they were 2 feet 7 inches off the ground. So there's an appreciation for all the variables that could exist here, and we don't get too specific. And that's the key to staying within the limits of our science.
Do you see that those blood spots came from 3 feet and below or above 3 feet? Could you tell based on just the journalist's photographs?
I wouldn't want to speculate based on the journalist's photographs alone. I would say this, Ashley: if I had to form an opinion about that very issue, I would actually want to conduct some experiments and drop
On that tile.
on that tile, and that would be the best way to form a scientifically derived opinion.
Do you think, Dr. Valentin, that might have been what they were doing when they put that white tent up for half a day or a couple of hours at least out in front of her front door? I think 2 or 3
That's a
weeks
good
into
point.
this crime, that suddenly they might have been doing those kinds of experiments under that tent.
They didn't take the mat. They didn't take the police mat or the welcome mat.
Yeah. Somehow I doubt they were doing that part. If I had to speculate, I would imagine that they were using other reagents, maybe an alternate light source, and they were looking for latent evidence, right? Evidence that they hadn't found during their first pass through the scene. Because you only find the evidence. I know this is going to sound very simplistic and cliche, but you only find the evidence you're looking for. And if you go to your scene with the wrong sense of what your scene is about, you could walk right past the evidence of what actually happened. And in the days and weeks since this happened, has their understanding of this event changed, right? And if it had, and now they're aware of a new bit of information, right? Would that have made them go back to the scene to look for something that they had no idea was relevant the first time they were there?
Well, when that tent came down, guess what was missing? The bracket for the camera that was her doorbell camera, her Nest doorbell cam. It had been up for 3 weeks, and suddenly they decided.
I did not know that. I did not know that the bracket on the door where the doorbell was came down. So they took that bracket. Good job, Ashley.
Decided it was worth taking down. And I kept saying, well, if this guy's putting a bite light in his mouth, well, there's DNA all over those gloved fingers. And then he's messing around with that Nest cam and the bracket. So I was astounded that it wasn't taken earlier, but it ended up being taken.
I can't believe that wasn't seized the first time either. And
so think of that. This guy, right? He's got this bite light. Do I have a picture of the bite light? Yes, in his mouth, right? And if he's messing around with it and he's coming up to the door, right? And he's touching that doorbell right there. He's real close to it. All of that. It could be DNA on that bracket when he was pulling this off. Maybe.
I mean, you could say, well, we didn't know what was on the video immediately.
Still.
So,
You knew he
but-
took the camera.
but
Exactly.
you also
knew
had
he
the
took
blood
the camera.
evidence right outside the threshold. And so you should have immediately
Oh,
just looked around the threshold and say, well, what's small enough that I can take this with me and bring it back to a laboratory where I can examine it. Take evidence with you that turns out to have no probative value. What did you just spend? Man hours, right?
Nothing.
You spent some time looking at it and it turned out not to have probative value. You wasted nothing.
What's your opinion of them leaving that
Maurice.
half moon welcome mat right there? I think it's still there. I honestly, I don't know. I haven't seen a picture recently, but my God, that half moon welcome mat was there for weeks.
It's the same thing. To me, that would be a treasure trove of potential trace evidence. Now, would that have
I mean, think about this, guys. This frustrates the shit out of me, this mat. Okay, let's think about this. I'm going to start cussing. I'm going to try not to cuss. Calm down. What is a welcome mat for? What's a rug for? To get things off your feet. Okay? Let's just say, I don't know, you left your car because you drove your ass to that house and there is, I don't know, fibers in your car, or you just took your dog to the vet and there is dog hair in your car, or dog hair on your clothes and cat hair, something from your house in your car. I guarantee you there is, right? And you walk to the doorway and you walk across that mat, which is, whether you wipe your feet or not, it grabs things from your shoe. But they leave the doormat. They leave the fucking doormat. It's crazy.
been an absolute nightmare for a trace evidence analyst to shake that out over their bench and get tens of thousands of pieces of sand and, you know, detritus from the environment? Absolutely. But within that, might there have been one or two, three? Could there have been a carpet fiber from the vehicle that the perpetrator drove to the house?
Or his
I have not seen this video. I promise you, I wasn't expecting him to say that.
mud from his home on the bottom of his shoe.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I was very frustrated. And again, I'm not a CSI expert. I'm just a little crime reporter, but I've seen enough of this stuff that I have noticed that that is usually very valuable. I couldn't understand why it wasn't. I want to just pull on one more thread before I leave it, because we went on a little bit of a tangent, worthwhile tangent, and that was the nature of Mrs. Guthrie's injuries. When you see those blood droplets, and knowing what my source has said about the continuation over the threshold and inside the front entrance of that house, is that a grave injury? Is that somebody grabbed her too hard on the arm? And when your skin at 84 is so fine and you are on blood thinners, you can easily cause a bleeding injury just by holding somebody too tightly.
Look at her arm here.
Is it
She's got a
punch?
Band-Aid.
What is it that you think it could be?
That right there, that's a pretty recent picture of Nancy right there.
That's a difficult one. So this is not something I would write in a report or testify about, but I would say investigatively, if we were like in the, we were in the command post and we were talking about next steps, I don't think this is a lethal injury. I don't necessarily think that if she hasn't shown up in an emergency room that, she's not surviving this, right? Because sometimes that's the issue, right? We have scenes where we can recognize that this is a catastrophic injury and that if the person does not show up in an emergency room, we're dealing with a different kind of case. This isn't that. However, she does need medical attention of some sort. Do we want to go to the drugstores and see who's buying gauze and, hydrogen peroxide. There's all sorts of ways that you can take this. I mean, clearly it's survivable. But what are we combining it with? What else happened that I don't have physical evidence of?
Right.
Exactly.
The other question is, and I think it's always hard to ask these questions because we've all hoped that Mrs. Guthrie would be found alive. Even Savannah is intimating that she wants her mother home for a final resting place at this point. So there's a lot of reality that's coming, into focus. There's still optimism. Sheriff certainly seems optimistic. He wants the perpetrator to drop her off somewhere. I'm not sure where that comes from, but
What do you mean? What do you mean, Charmin? What would be considered mixed DNA?
But is that the kind of bleeding that comes from a dead person or a live person?
So
And still he
I
watches,
would
doesn't
not
he,
have a way
Ashley?
of distinguishing between those two, at least not from what I've seen in these photographs. And and I share your feelings about all of this. It's so frustrating, and my heart goes out to the Guthrie family, and the simultaneous national coverage of their mother's disappearance, but at the same time perhaps even needing this coverage to keep the spotlight on this case, because I remember working cases that had no coverage, that I
No
didn't
tips.
understand why.
Got to keep the spotlight on it. Right, Paul?
And cases that had international coverage, and I didn't understand why. So I can appreciate the double-edged sword here. And given what I saw, you would not be able to distinguish whether or not the person was still alive or not. But perhaps there are other aspects of this that we're not privy to that potentially could change my opinion on that, but certainly not based on the photographs I could say anything.
If Mrs. Guthrie,
But I don't think there was enough blood. Like, some crime scenes, they can, if they couldn't have sustained life anymore or something. Hey, Tucson, good to see you, babe. This is obviously, from what we see here, not that.
was killed inside the home, and this perpetrator removed her body and
Hold on.
left that pattern behind.
Wait a second. What?
Or not, but perhaps there are other aspects of this that we're not privy to that potentially could change my opinion.
Is he talking about the other?
Certainly not based on the
She talking about the
photographs I
other
could say.
Nancy?
If Mrs. Guthrie was killed inside the home, and this perpetrator removed her body and left that pattern behind, inside and outside, over that front threshold, what kind of a circumstance would cause that kind of a blood pattern? Because we don't bleed after we die.
Well, it's not that we don't bleed after we die. It's the matter of,
Say it.
there's nothing creating pressure in the way that we would if we were still alive. I can create a source of blood in somebody who's dead if I simply reposition the body so that the injury is lower than the rest of the body, so that you have this passive.
So, like I've told you guys, I've worked in several funeral homes. I've seen a lot of blood in my day. And just because you are not alive doesn't mean, you're not bleeding. You're, like he said, there's no pressure from you don't have a blood pressure. But you got to think of the path of least resistance, right? Okay. So, when you're washing your face, and the water runs down your arm or whatever, right? Well, it's just gravity. It's the path of least resistance. And if there's blood or there's any type of fluid on the outside of you of any significance, and you are repositioned, that blood or liquid is going to follow that path. And once it accumulates to a certain point, then there becomes a drop, and then it goes. And then it falls, right?
pressure, for lack of a better description.
Gravity.
Exactly. So you could imagine if you had somebody on a stretcher and their arm was hanging off the side of the stretcher, that could create it. And so you'd have scenarios like that. But aside from that, I mean, it is suggestive of it. There's just not enough there.
Oh.
And so here I have to exercise some restraint and say, scientifically, I have no way of distinguishing between the two.
Yes, it could have, Charmin. Yes, but they could still separate it. But the problem is they could find someone's DNA or fiber, because you're not just looking for DNA. You would be looking for fibers and in hairs and stuff like that, which is so. The problem is, you might be able to find an answer, but after it's sat there for so long, it would probably be thrown out in court, because hell, it's sat out there for days, and you could say, I was at his house at, or how, fibers can get mixed in the strangest ways as well.
But
So can DNA.
investigatively, what would I say if I saw that? I said it tends to lean in the direction of her being alive.
And then the other
That's good
question
to
I'm
know.
going to ask you, and this is a really hard one too, more on your Connecticut cop hat here, because you have to noodle all the possibilities, all
I wish he was on the case, this
the
guy.
theories, all the scenarios in order to, move along in an investigation. Knowing what you know about this crime scene, knowing about this blood pattern going from inside the house over the front door and to the outside of the house and being the same all the way. And knowing what we've seen on the front doorbell cam, and that my source says the back door was left wide open. What would your theory be about what happened to Mrs. Guthrie?
I don't know enough to say what happened in the house. I mean, your guess is as good as my guess.
You know what I love about this? I love that Ashley can actually ask these questions now, because like when she's with big media, you can't ask these direct of questions, right? And now she can.
As good as anybody else's. And I'm a person that is really driven by physical evidence.
Yes, Leslie.
And physical evidence tells a story. And let me explain it this way. When you open up the door to Nancy Guthrie's house, that house tells a story. How does she keep her house? Like, what level of order is her house normally? And what would draw my attention is, what are the alterations to that normal state? So if you tend to be a person who keeps your house neat, where are the disruptions? Where are the disturbances to that otherwise neat?
And I would think that she would keep her house very orderly, right? Very, very orderly. Where's the disturbances?
State.
I mean, the sheriff said clearly something really bad happened in the house. Really bad happened in the house. What was the state of the bedroom? Was there anything broken, things out of order?
Now, that's not to say that you could have, you weren't attacked in the place.
He is,
that still was
Casey.
neat.
He really
But
is.
I'm drawn to the changes to the status quo, right?
Hey,
Most people will
YouTuber.
say, signs of a struggle. But I guarantee there are people listening to this,
Maybe
the whole
he's
house looks
Reese.
like a sign of a struggle. That's how they live their day to day.
No,
So
my
that's-
kids' bedrooms. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I usually joke around, because I'm here at a university, and most dorm rooms look like a sign of a struggle all the time. So we can't really look at things that simplistically, right? You're looking for a change.
That's what I said about like Summer Wells case, right? Like think about the inside of, if you're familiar with the Summer Wells case, like that place was a fucking disaster. You couldn't tell if something was out of order or not because everything was out of order already before.
Change to the normal state. So I would have to look at that house and let
Yeah,
myself
Sharon.
get drawn to what looks, I'm not going to say out of place, because that's not really the way to think about this, but what looks recently changed, right? That she didn't have a chance to bring it back to the normal state. But I can't let myself get drawn to that without first walking through and looking at everything in a methodical way. It would be like
Yeah, Sherman.
reading a book and skipping to page 276. I wouldn't have any sense of who the characters were.
Mm.
So I will understand what's out of place once I digest the entire scene. Then
Well,
I become really well versed in what is the normal state for that house. And it's only when I do that that I can really sense where in that house are the areas that I now need to focus on, because I work with physical evidence. So you could swab that house and get 1,000 exhibits and they're all useless because you didn't apply the right frame of reference for how you're going to do this. I could do it that way and find 3 places there that clearly look like something happened here based off subtle cues, and find 20 swabs, and those potentially are more probative. And in a lot of cases, people will walk in, whether it's ego, whether it's to be right first, people will rush to figure out what happened instead of hanging back and letting a scene like that.
Sheriff Doofy. Sheriff Doofy. Ego. FBI.
Essentially talk to you, right? By soaking it in, working the scene methodically, and then letting that
I
drive the
know.
process.
Do you think that happened here?
He doesn't want to say.
In almost every case like this that I've seen, and in the cases I've worked that have had this level of scrutiny, the pressure of
Is immense.
multiple agencies having to cooperate, the pressure of the media.
But the thing is like, he wasn't. The sheriff was not cooperating, allegedly, with the FBI for the first 2 to 3
and
weeks.
now exacerbate all of that by the pressure of, you know, a famous family being involved. It creates unforced errors. And errors always complicate things.
Yeah, but the sheriff is saying that he doesn't regret anything. He doesn't think he made any errors. He doesn't think that he returned the scene too early, even though I think in week 2 or 3 he admitted that he had done that. I'm not.
He did. He certainly did. He said he's made no errors, but he did say he did say that, oh, I might have not should have returned the scene so early. But he also said he didn't make any errors. Hey, man, good to see you, my friend.
100% sure why he's saying these things, but in your estimation,
'Cause he's a
do you think that
douche.
the investigative, teams let that house tell them the story, or do you think they told the story too quickly?
I feel very confident in saying that first they let the house go too quickly, unless the Guthrie family was beyond adamant that they wanted the house back. And I can't imagine why. I would have held that house for as long as I possibly could, particularly because this is one of those very few cases where forensic evidence is leading the investigation. In most situations, we conduct our investigation and forensic evidence is running in parallel, or forensically what we're doing is we are confirming what we're figuring out investigatively, right? We're almost like a lagging indicator of what you figure out investigatively. This is one of the very few cases where everyone's waiting with bated breath to know what the forensic testing results are so that we can figure out what to do.
And there was supposed to be back some testing that came back a few days ago.
And this, this only happens in maybe 5 and 10.
And if Sheriff Doofy McDoof would have given it to the FBI, we could have probably had those back a lot sooner.
Percent of the cases I ever worked,
Sheriff ran his
everybody wanted
pie
to
hole
know
too
what
much.
I
Yeah,
had to say about
he
what
did
to
spare
do,
it.
because if the forensic testing doesn't give us useful information, we're stuck. And that doesn't happen very often.
This is the word that keeps coming up, is stuck.
Stuck.
Yes.
That or stumped. And I guess I'll leave it there, because I feel as though as we
Do you
learn
think they're
more,
stuck
I'm
or
gonna be
stumped?
calling you again to see where these new puzzle pieces fit in and if they take us in a new direction. Dr. Valentin, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation.
No, it's my pleasure, Ashley. Thanks for calling.
So there you have it, folks. Day 52, not a good day for Sheriff.
That is so informative. That really is very, very informative. Just absolutely crazy. Let me show you guys some things here. I want to show you a map of this neighborhood. And every one of these, of course, this is Nancy's home right here, right? Right here's Nancy's home. And this home is under construction per the FBI, right? This home was under construction. This is the neighbor that had the dog that went outside it took the dog outside the 11th and the 31st, or sorry, the 1st, around 1 a.m. with the two cameras that was pointing toward Nancy's house that weren't working, right? This home is empty and for rent as well. This home is for sale right here. They're working on this construction right now. There's a lot of homes that are empty or for rent or construction going on right now. Who was it? Which house was it? I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah, right here. This house right here, the one that she did an interview with Brian. Okay. Now, again, here's her house. Here is Nancy's home right here. She said that she was looking out her bathroom mirror, and there was this really strange guy on the 11th, toward Nancy's home, like across, but yet down the road a bit. Yeah. So, how did this mofo turn off? I mean, I have never heard a case where they do a blackout, right? Like they black out your internet or your electricity or something. Some guy on January 11th that had open house and told LE some strange guys were at his home. Really, Bridget? I haven't seen that yet. Yes, and he has been trying to find someone to help him get his finding, maybe he worked for the internet. Yeah, well, Miss Eureka, that's what I was Speaking about the other day, did this guy, did he ever work for like an internet company, telecommunications? Is he an electrician? Would he know? Lots of trades people work in the area. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and let's go to Elizabeth Vargas right here on News Nation.
One of Nancy Guthrie's mysterious disappearance. Today, an urgent plea from her family asking Tucson residents to come forward with any new clues that could help solve the case. Today's show
I'm gonna
host
pull
Savannah
something up.
Guthrie and her brother and sister say the Tucson community could hold the key to solving their mother's disappearance, perhaps providing the break in the case that authorities have so far failed to find. In a statement, Guthrie's family said someone knows something. They're asking Tucson residents to search their memories around the key timelines of January 31st, when Guthrie was last seen, as well as the early morning hours of February 1st, when authorities believe Nancy was taken from her home. Also, the late evening of January 11th, which authorities, for whatever reason, have really focused on. That date, January 11th, was 20 days before Nancy disappeared. And until now, there's been no explanation as to why it may be significant. But it now appears that there are reports that January 11th may have been linked at one point to the surveillance video of the masked man that was recovered from that Nest camera at Guthrie's home. For more on that, let's go live to Brian Enton, who's been on this case from the very start. Brian, what from the Nest camera would make authorities hone in on January 11th?
Yeah, this January 11th component of the Guthrie statement is very interesting to me, Elizabeth, because it is the first time that the family has acknowledged the significance of January 11th, which is exactly 3 weeks before Nancy Guthrie went missing. When I was out in the neighborhood, I heard it over and over again where the FBI was going to neighbors saying, do you have video from January 11th? Did you see anything strange the night of January 11th? And now to see the Guthries actually saying that they are interested in that day too is interesting. The sheriff is now saying, Elizabeth, that remember those two photos that came from the Google Nest camera on the front of Nancy Guthrie's door? The sheriff is saying that Google initially said that one of those photos was taken on January 11th, but then came back later and said, well, we can't be totally sure that it was actually that date. But regardless, it likely means that this person, and maybe there were a couple of them, were casing Nancy Guthrie's house. I mean, 3 weeks before, Elizabeth, outside the house, looking around the house, clearly shows us that this was likely planned, Elizabeth.
And it's astonishing to believe and to remember it's been 51 days now that she disappeared. That poor family. All right, Brian, thank you.
Would you like to receive a discount or pay
Okay.
the full price?
What's give me a second here. When was that? Okay, it was before that. I'm looking for something real quick. The construction crews nearby. I'm looking for here it is. Okay. Look at this. Brian Anton. Guys, if you're just joining us, please hit that thumbs up button. Really, really do appreciate you all being here. Let me see here. Bathroom window. Just give me a second. Okay, watch this. Let me find it right here. Okay.
Police.
I did. I told the FBI the day after they came here, and I discussed that with them. So this is my window.
Watch this.
With his hat down really low. I did a bit in high school. Well, not considerably, but I'm about 3 or 4 years older than Savannah. I knew her brother better.
Was there anything strange in the neighborhood you noticed
That'd be
before
Carol.
this happened?
I did 2 weeks before, about 2 weeks before.
Thank you, Miss Mama. I'm sorry I missed that earlier. I
I have a
apologize.
picture
Thank you so
window
much.
in my
I
bathroom,
appreciate
and
you.
I see all the people walking by in the mornings, and I noticed this strange guy with his hat down really low. He was kind of hunched over, not in, walking or hiking gear. He was dressed in kind of street clothing. So I thought that was weird because that's not normal.
And it stood out to you.
Oh yeah, I said something to my husband and my mother. So yeah.
And how often has something like that happened where it stood out to you enough to say something?
Not often at all. I see the same people. They're people I know, my friends. Yeah. So no, I think once, maybe 12 years ago, I saw a strange guy.
Did you tell the police?
I did. I told the FBI the day after they came here, and I discussed that with them. So this is my window that I'm getting ready.
It says sporting. And this is the thing, Jason, like, why hasn't law enforcement asked her to, like, for them to do a sketch of what maybe this guy looked like, or what he was wearing or whatever? You would think, right?
In the morning, and I saw him out there. So I couldn't make out his face, although his hat was way down. And I think I can open up this one too.
Okay.
See, since we have all this stuff going on, and we have to have it all fixed. So this one is usually open as well. So you've got a pretty good view.
So Nancy's is up that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you've got a pretty good view, and he was walking down the road, and I always see people and I think, oh, that's my friend Nora, or that's this person or that person. And I saw him and I was like, oh, that guy doesn't fit. So.
And this was sometime around January 11th.
Yes. So my birthday is January 8th. That's
Okay.
why I remember so well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And describe him again?
Well, he was in kind of street clothes, not shoes that you'd walk in. And he had a baseball hat really low, and he was kind of hunched over, and he was kind of looking around.
Hold on. He was in what? Let me see here.
January 8th.
Okay.
That's why I remember so well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And describe him again?
Well, he was in kind of street clothes, not shoes that.
What does street clothes mean? I mean, I know what street clothes means, but I need a little more specifics. You know what I
You'd
mean?
walk in, and he had a baseball hat really low, and he was kind of hunched over, and he was kind of looking around, and he just didn't fit. And he wasn't going terribly quickly like a normal person that's getting exercise. He was kind of going slowly. And when he walked by this street, he.
You know, one thing I wish Brian would have asked, which, did he, was he built like this guy? Was he built? Did he resemble this guy in any way, shape, or form? She said street clothes, shoes, and he was looking around, and he had his hat down, but he wasn't moving fast. Well, this guy certainly didn't move fast as well, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
He took a long look at it. I noticed that.
And it was enough for you to remember to tell your husband. Yeah.
Yeah. It freaked me out. And I'm not one of those people to be super freaked out by that, but I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like when the FBI came?
It freaked her out. Now listen to this, what she says right here, because I want to show you something.
They were young and just listening and asking a couple of questions, and wanted to know if our Ring camera worked, and it didn't at that time, unfortunately. I don't know if it would have gotten any of the road because our house is so set back. So I don't know if we would have been much help, but just questions like that.
It's interesting, like no one's Ring cameras work in this neighborhood, it seems like.
Well, it's such a safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like half the time we used to not lock our doors.
She doesn't.
We do now. Now we have
She
cameras.
doesn't, Charlotte, and that's what I'm saying. Like street clothes. Okay, we know what street clothes is in general, but like, what color were they? Were they, blue jeans? Were they just casual pants, or they khakis? Like what were they? What kind of collar hat was it? Do you remember how tall he was? The 11th, Yvette. The 11th. Yeah.
Things like that. But no, yeah, I've never even had a package stolen ever in 23
No,
years.
she didn't lock her doors
So it
either.
really is one of those, because I heard some people say, oh yeah, it's like one of those places you wouldn't lock your doors, but you really didn't.
Yeah, we really didn't. Yeah, we really didn't. I mean, I had 3 teenagers wandering around here, and yeah, I'd come home and the back door would be wide open. I'm like, who's that? So yeah, never a problem, ever.
Do you, Maple's getting kind of anxious here.
Yeah.
Maple, she's so fun. Do you have any, you always walk her, so we all know her. Do you have any feel, I mean, are people, do they feel like this is an inside job? Or, because there's a sense from some that this is someone maybe even like in the neighborhood.
There's actually at a dinner last night, there was a discussion about it. It's people that live in this neighborhood, and we're all just throwing things around. Like some people are like, it's for sure a Savannah connection. Some people are like, that guy in the video seemed so lackadaisical that maybe it's a, robbery gone bad. I mean, yeah, I have my theories, but they change because then when you start thinking about stuff, you're like,
Now, guys, I got a question. So we just heard from that blood expert on Ashley Banfield's channel. You know, the tracks that is in the driveway now, that to me it looks like it could have been a dolly or something. Do you guys think those tracks are still important to her case, or do you think it's just a red herring? Has maybe nothing to do with it. We can't take safe neighborhood for granted. Never, never. For certain days, times, and the neighborhood cams are poofed. Yeah. Very weird. Very, very weird.
so I hope we
Let me check
find her
something.
and find out.
Are you surprised it's taken this long?
No, because I think someone brought to my attention that a lot of these cases take 30 plus days.
Yep.
So yeah, so I'm not surprised. I was not here the night she was taken, but I arrived home the next morning. And then when we found out she was missing, we all went out looking for her.
Okay.
So I thought we would find her, honestly.
I just found
Like
out.
it was just
Let me show
some
you
kind of
this.
not that serious of a situation.
Think so?
No,
Yeah.
like she had fallen or just something. Yeah.
Were you just out of town that weekend, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Phoenix. I got home on Sunday morning from my daughter Harper lives in Phoenix.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Probably not.
That must have been like, what were you thinking when you heard about this?
I was shocked. My elderly mother lives a street away. So I was like, oh my gosh, like this is terrifying, and poor Nancy. And yeah, so we just all kind of went out on foot. We all went driving around. I asked the sheriff a few questions and he's like, yep, we already did that. I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because the sheriff already did everything, apparently, right? Already did everything, apparently. Let me go. I want to show you guys this. I was just looking to see like how far where like the dog is and the cameras to where Nancy's home is, and it's only about 500 feet away. Not far. That's about 500 feet. 500. Google says 569 feet. That is not far at all. Very, very interesting. And let me show you this. Oh, it doesn't show back here. I wonder if I can see it from like this angle. No, you see the plants are so high here, and because it's year around, you can't really see in your Like Nancy's house is like right over here, but you can't see because of this. You'd have to be in their backyard. I guess they blurred that out as well. But if you go, like, right down here's the neighbor's house where they were, the cameras are. And then if you go right up here, and then you go, right here. Maybe down a little bit. One second. Did I go the wrong way? Like, it's such a maze right here. It's such a maze. Look at this place. Like, you truly look at all the cul-de-sacs. See, like, you don't know, like, you have to know who this person is, why, they went here. There's just no other way you're just going to pick this house at random. There's just no other way. At all. No way. These are different dates. I'm looking at things. Sorry. No way. They were dragging while bags like onboard luggage with their equipment. See, I think it's like a dolly or something. Yacht Club. No, you're not blocked in. The crime lab people pulled in a large white box low to the ground with a handle like on a pull suitcase. Jay says, I'd say the tracks are very important unless landscapers are like where they're that week doing stuff outside. That's a good point. Safety is an illusion of luck. I think the crime in general is getting much worse now. These days, always lock your doors. Absolutely. I think a hand truck or a trash can. I think a hand truck and a dolly is the same thing, right? Like a wheelbarrow. If I'm correct. Okay. Let me show you this. And then, a second, maybe. This is supposed to be the map of the house. This is with Ashley Banfield as well.
Bottom of the screen into the garage. Can you do that?
Yeah, if we were driving from the beginning, driving from the bottom of the screen, it would have came in like this.
Okay,
so this is the front of the garage. We're actually looking at it from behind the house, and that camera that you were just referring to was right over here on the top.
But people
of the
should know that this big, huge bottom square.
Okay.
That says 56.4 on the bottom. That's not building. That's yard.
Yeah, that's right here. This place.
That big square there. Okay, that's helpful. So because people are thinking that's an awfully big piece of the building.
Yeah.
But so that
no, this is the house. Just this part right here. This is the deck, and then this is the yard outside, and then over here is like the pool.
big empty square on the bottom is yard, and this little rectangle with a diagonal line through it is actually an outdoor patio. So if you go to the left of the patio and scooch over all the way to the left, you'll be getting towards that little blue door.
Yeah,
and
I
that
think the
little
blue door is right here, I think. In this, next to that room, just right next to, right in this little spot. I'm moving. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm moving around like a
there.
little,
Now I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
And what's sort of interesting about that is that
So this is the garage right there. And then there's a door right here. It's just a little room. It's almost like a storage room or a dry room right there. And it, maybe you could call it a mud room even. And there's a door right there.
we all thought that
Right
was
here.
just going inside the house, and it looks like it's actually going inside either the garage or a little bit of a, a tool room or garden room or storage room
garden room.
off the garage. And it's not necessarily going into the house proper, correct? That little blue door that everyone's looked at?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they used glass on it for a storage room, but you
Right
know,
there.
it is what it is. So there is that.
Right there.
And so you saw that there was a storage room just in there. And then if we go back to the map, there's a garage. The garage is right there. So the storage room doesn't appear to go into the garage. I don't know if there's another door right there. We don't know that. We can't see into the garage very well. There is a shot that I have in the garage. This one.
Oh, that's
And you
interesting.
can see that there is a garage, half of a garage door there. Now, this looks newer than a door that we might see in a little bit, because these photographs that apparently we have inside the home seem to be pretty old, from.
Right. So they would have pulled in, her and Tommaso would have pulled in. She would have opened the garage, closed the garage, most likely, and then went here in this door, and then entered her home
A while ago.
And let's be really clear about the floor plan that you're looking at, and the photos we'll show people in a moment inside the home. Where did you get this floor plan, and roughly how old might it be, even though we can't really date it?
Well, somebody actually sent it to me. Then I went out to the same website. It was like a county website that had the floor plan, and I downloaded it. And so it was great, but I sure wish it had the interior walls, But so we're left to try to figure that out. And that door that we were just seeing is
right. It doesn't have really divided rooms
right here. And so that's going to
inside the garage.
Right.
Meaning
So there is, from what I understand, this right here is the door in the entrance. Make sure I'm not muted. Okay. Here's the door in the entrance. And obviously there was blood on the other side, allegedly, of the door. But back here is another door. And this was the door that was left open.
if you drive into the garage and then you got out of your car and kept walking forward, that would be, point to that again, put your cursor where that was again. You would be walking through the door to the interior of the house from the garage right there.
Right. And so when Nancy was dropped off that night in the garage door.
Yes. And Janice, that is so bizarre to me. Right? How did these cameras not capture while the perpetrator was inside this house, but captured the police arriving? Like, is this perpetrator, are they that smart? I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean to, I don't care about judging this guy, but he doesn't look like he's from a Mensa, group.
Open, she likely went through that door to go into the house.
So can you flip to and knowing now that you'd be walking through that door,
That's a good question.
and that it's not that little blue door that we've all been looking at in the backyard. Flip to the inside. Well, should we flip to the inside of the house so we can see what you're referring to by the way you get from the garage into the house and where it lands you.
So I think this is it right here. So this, I believe that this image right there, now you see that there isn't glass on the lower portion of it.
Right.
Because that door looks like one of the newer type of doors that you have with the blinds inside the glass.
This is an old picture.
And so I think this is an area where you come into the house and then you turn to the right and it heads towards the back. Now, if you look way back there, you can literally see the cement wall in the backyard there.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I'm just so into this. Radiant, I missed that. I apologize. Thank you so much. Thank you for your dedication to this case and offering good questions to contemplate. Thank you so much, my dear. I appreciate that very, very much. Good to see you, and thank you for that, your support and those kind words. I appreciate you, Radiant. Radiant or Samantha, that beautiful name. Thank you so much. And Trishy, thank you, love. I appreciate you very much. Gifting 5 pearl necklaces. I text you today, Trishy. I don't know if you saw that or not. I was worried about you. Hopefully you are well, my friend. Good to see you. If you received one of those, make sure you thank our dear Trishy for that. Can an electrician install one switch to turn all power off in-house except fridge? Especially if she went to New York, to Savannah for holiday? I don't think so. Why? I mean, this is the thing. It's whoever did this, to me, you had to know how to, you had to know that those cameras inside were not recording you. So you either had to have a way to sign in or feel really confident that they were blacked out, meaning the neighbors' cameras weren't working, the 2 cameras. I'm back to the office full-time in Michigan. I got you, Trishy. Love you, darling. Good to see you. So, but this is the thing. This is the thing that really bothers me. If they could turn off the camera, the neighbor's camera, those 2 cameras, right? And they could turn off the inside of Nancy's home in the cameras inside. Why didn't they do that to the porch camera? Why didn't they do that to the porch camera? Because they took that camera. If they knew that the neighbor's cameras weren't working and they knew that the inside of Nancy's cameras wasn't working, why didn't they do that to Nancy's porch camera? Because he was trying to cover it up with the plants. Right? The porch ring camera ran out of battery? No, I don't think it's that. They may have taken the porch camera because they touched it a lot. But he had gloves on. And you don't need to touch it if you know it's not recording. No, Joe Coco. Mm-mm. Right? If you know it's not recording, you don't got to touch it. I think that's right. 503. I would think it's about 3 or 4 feet. Yeah, I would agree. He knew the one on the porch was working, is why he took it. But this is the thing. How do you know the ones inside aren't recording? They must have known that subscription was not paid. Yeah. Kate, you was at Nancy's kitchen. This is a very old picture of the house. Remember, they've been there since they've lived in this house, I think since like 91 or 92. And it's been redone since then, but yeah. Unless camera had audio by motion sensor. Yes, but regardless, you still know that there's a camera there, and you would shut that camera off just like you would any other camera. If you shut the neighbors off, if you shut the ones off in the house, or you know they're not recording, because you either shut them off or you know they're not recording inside. It's one or the other, right? Which means you've messed up the internet in some way, or electricity, or you have access to those cameras inside. One or the other. Maybe they thought they shut it off. It was a glitch. Well, if he thought he shut it off, why did he try to cover it up? I mean, they have to know, Pug. They have to know something about either the internet or how to turn neighbors' cameras internet off, or again electricity, because they were asking about a blackout. And nobody's reported a blackout though. Justin, the perp with the backpack was recorded January 24th. There was the 24th did come up, but I haven't seen anything else about it. And now they're just talking about January 11th. Hold on. When was it? There was early in the morning, like at 10 a.m., someone, the media was talking about. But they're also talking about January 31st, around the time Nancy would have been at Tomaso's. Was her cameras controlled by an app on her phone? Does anyone know? Yeah, they would have. It would have. She would have had to. She or someone else would have had the app. It really is oranges. This is a very frustrating case. It's a very frustrating case, and they had to really, really plan this. Really plan this. They said it was hard to keep connection in that area, and all the press and YouTubers were there. Yeah, that's cell data. That's different than having a connection with an internet service, right? That cell data is towers, right? Your internet is a line. So it's different connections. And Google is the one that scratched the photos, so we know it was Google Nest security system. Yes. They used the latest technology. It would have wiped out all, including the Nest doorbell. It had to be recorded earlier, like January 24th. And I'm telling you, they didn't use a Wi-Fi jammer. They just don't have that. Just nobody's got that type of technology to do a whole block or anything like that. It's different. Well, it would have to be like an internet blackout, right? Because you have to have internet for your Wi-Fi to work, right? Yeah, it's crazy. I thought how Nest Ring cameras work. I thought that's how Nest Ring cameras work. What do you mean, Yvette? So there are wired Nest cameras, like some, and then there are Wi-Fi cameras. But so you have internet, and then so for instance, my computer, I have it wired hookup because it's faster that way than it is just like Wi-Fi. I can use Wi-Fi, but if there is, you got to have internet, and then it will put off Wi-Fi, right? Wi-Fi is just like a wireless internet signal, but before you get to that wireless internet signal, there has to be internet in your home. It's very frustrating. I don't know. But they were closest family, so I thought they had the app too. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yvette, and I'll be, I don't know if Tommaso and Annie and them had it access to the cameras. In my opinion, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Like if your mother falls, to me, that camera was not for the interior cameras were not for necessarily security. They were for like if your mother falls. So I would think, of course, they would have it. To make sure her mother was okay for falling. Exactly. That's why people have these cameras for their elderly. And also, I don't want, listen, I'm not blaming anybody or anything, but you know how, like, on those cameras, through your app, you can talk to somebody live, right? You can hear them and you can talk to them. It has a microphone button, it has a speaker button. And again, I just thought of this. It was just a thought that went through my head that if this could have happened, I'm not saying it did happen because I truly have I want to make it clear, I have no idea who did this. Not a clue. But you know how, like, you know how, like, you can talk to someone live or whatever? If family would be involved or someone who set up that camera for Nancy, they could have even potentially looked at that camera if something was being done even. I don't think that happened at all. I would hope not, but it reminded me of, you remember, like, when what is it? Yes, can be hacked even if it is Bluetooth, isn't there a passcode security? Um, it's not, I don't think it's Bluetooth. I think it's just Wi-Fi. It's like remote access when you have a computer issue. Yeah. You would think, Pugs, and you would think that didn't happen because there was supposedly no, it wasn't being recorded while this person was there. But I don't know how the hell they turn off these cameras. You know what I mean? The remote access I meant needs a Trojan virus. You can also set it up to any phone when you're installing the app. Absolutely. And one thing I've really thought about is they had they hired Nancy allegedly, and even Annie, from what I understand, they hired people often to do things. Um, did someone set up these cameras like they have people do? Someone maybe you trust, or maybe it's just someone that said that they install cameras for you and they set up this account or whatever, and they had access to it. You're helping an old lady out, right? Or you're helping out Annie and Tommaso, and you're, uh, here's the password, Annie and Tommaso, and they had, obviously nothing to do with it, but the person who set up these cameras, installed these cameras, installed this app. Something. Very weird. Very weird. Right? Because how many times do does people that know technology help out older people with technology nowadays? Every day. Every day. And that's kind of makes me wonder. Maybe it's, someone who, like an electrician, like, a camera installer. Maybe it's just a regular Joe down the road who put in a simple ad, will install cameras, systems, security systems, whatever, for a fee or whatever. He didn't just expect the one on the porch to be working. Well, he apparently expected that one to be working because he covered it up. Right? So Nancy, without a subscription, looks like this, in my opinion. Your account content is saved online includes things like photos, videos, messages without subscription, limited free storage. Mm. It's very weird. So weird, man. He went up to the door first and noticed it after. But this guy was allegedly there. This guy was at that camera. He was on this porch allegedly days before. Remember, without his backpack. He knew that the camera was there because that camera that was there when he was there without his backpack, he moved that camera. It's not the same alignment as it was before. He knew that camera was there. So if he knew that camera was there days, weeks before, and he had slightly moved that camera, and he cut the neighbors off, and he knew the ones inside wasn't working or cut them off, why not that door camera? It's like also if you don't lock your device, Bluetooth in it, and run it open, they can watch it from the outside in a car by the Bluetooth. I don't know about that. It's odd that we're looking into at a like crime and technology aspect of the case. Yeah. Why did he rent a I said, why did he rent a rental next to Nancy and not closer to the gym show? Your response is off topic. My daughter, without internet, records in the house on a box 2-week rollover, motion activated. Yes, but that's got like to require like a DVR or some card, some storage card, right? I don't know, guys. All right. I've been here over 3 hours. You guys are amazing. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'll be live tomorrow, Lord willing. Creeks don't rise, as we say. Or if anything breaks in the meantime, take good care of yourselves, everyone. I hope this is solved really soon, and I hope Sheriff Doofy, they kick him out soon. Hey, Mary. Thank you, darling. Good night, everyone. I got SD cards for my cameras. Yes. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Jason. Crime. This that happened at Nancy's house was a setup, not random. I don't know about setup, but yeah, maybe setup. That's a word. Okay, word. But it certainly wasn't random. Yeah. And baby kisses, you're funny. I got to tear it all down before I go to bed. All right, guys. Love you all. Appreciate you. Take good care of yourselves. Good night, everyone. God bless.